The studio lights of Loose Women had never felt so harsh to Sean Bean. He sat upright on the familiar white sofa, hands folded, jaw tight, listening as the applause faded. The host smiled for the cameras, but there was an edge in the air, one of those mornings where tension hovered just beneath polite conversation. Sean had come to promote his latest drama series, a gritty northern crime story that critics were already calling one of his best performances in years. He expected the usual questions: the role, his accent, his famously frequent on-screen deaths, maybe a light joke or two. What he didn't expect was how quickly the conversation would turn personal. Denise Welch leaned forward first, her tone casual but pointed. "Sean, you've played a lot of angry men over the years," she said. "Do you think that reflects something unresolved in you?" A ripple of laughter passed through the audience. Sean forced a smile. "I think it reflects good writing," he replied evenly. "Actors don't need to live their roles to play them." Denise nodded, but didn't let it go. "Still," she continued, "you've spoken before about growing up tough in Sheffield, about drinking, about difficult relationships. Some would say that aggression comes through on screen because it's real." Sean's smile faded. He shifted slightly, choosing his words carefully. "I've been honest about my past," he said. "But I don't think it's fair to reduce a career of 40 years to a few headlines." The other panelists exchanged glances. The atmosphere had changed. Ruth Langsford attempted to steer things back, asking about the show's filming locations, but Denise cut in again. "But honesty works both ways, Sean," she said. "You've also said you don't like being told what to think politically or socially. Some people see that as you avoiding responsibility." Sean looked directly at her now. "With respect, Denise, I don't think disagreeing equals avoiding responsibility," he replied. His voice was calm, but firmer. "I believe in listening, not being lectured." A murmur spread through the audience. The producers' voices crackled faintly in the host's earpieces. Denise raised her eyebrows. "No one's lecturing you. But when you have a platform, your silence on certain issues speaks loudly." Sean inhaled slowly. Years of interviews had taught him patience, but something about the tone, public, dismissive, hit a nerve. "I'm here to talk about my work," he said. "Not to be cornered into political confessions." Denise leaned back, crossing her arms. "That sounds like a cop-out." The word landed heavy. Sean straightened. "And that," he said, "sounds like a judgment you'd already decided on before I sat down." The studio fell quiet. Even the camera operators seemed to slow. Ruth tried again to intervene. "All right, let's just." But Denise pressed on. "You're a powerful white male actor," she said. "People expect more accountability." Sean let out a short, humorless laugh. "I grew up on a council estate," he said. "Nothing was handed to me. Accountability isn't something I need explained to me on daytime television." The audience gasped softly. A few claps broke out, quickly hushed. Denise's face hardened. "So now you're playing the victim." That was it. Sean stood. The movement was sudden enough that one of the cameras wobbled. "I'm not playing anything," he said, his Yorkshire accent sharpening. "I'm setting a boundary." Ruth looked alarmed. "Sean, please, sit down." "I won't be spoken to like that," Sean continued, not raising his voice but commanding the room. "You invited me here as a guest, not a defendant." Denise opened her mouth to respond, but Sean held up a hand. "No. I've done thousands of interviews. I've answered hard questions. But this isn't a conversation, it's an ambush." A producer's voice came through the studio speakers, strained. "Sean, let's take a breath." Sean shook his head. "I'm done." He unclipped his microphone and placed it carefully on the table, a deliberate, almost symbolic act. "I respect this show," he said, looking around the panel, "but respect has to go both ways." The audience erupted, some applauding, others stunned into silence. As Sean walked off set, cameras followed until the director cut to a wide shot. Denise sat frozen, lips pressed together. Ruth stared after him, speechless. Backstage, Sean paused, his chest rising and falling. A runner approached nervously, apologizing on behalf of the production. Sean nodded, already calmer. "I didn't come here to fight," he said quietly. "But I won't be pushed into a corner for ratings." Inside the studio, the host scrambled to recover, filling airtime with awkward smiles and hurried transitions. Social media, meanwhile, was already exploding, clips uploading, hashtags forming, opinions dividing within minutes. And as Sean Bean stepped out into the cool London air, coat pulled tight around him, he knew one thing for certain: this confrontation wouldn't end with the closing credits. The moment Sean Bean's car door closed, his phone began vibrating again, first a gentle buzz, then an unrelenting storm. Missed calls from his agent. Messages from publicists. A single text from a fellow actor that read, "Good on you." He stared out the window as London slid past, unsure whether he'd just protected his dignity or torched a carefully built bridge. By the time he reached his flat, the clip had already gone viral. The confrontation was everywhere, cropped, slowed down, captioned with bold claims. Some hailed him as principled, finally pushing back against what they called performative outrage. Others accused him of arrogance, of storming off rather than engaging. The truth, Sean thought, sat somewhere quieter than the shouting online. His agent, Mark, finally got through. "Sean," he said, not bothering with pleasantries, "we need to talk." "I figured," Sean replied, loosening his tie. "ITV is furious. Denise is furious." But, Mark hesitated, the public response is split down the middle. And that's not always a bad thing. Sean let out a tired breath. "I didn't plan it, Mark. I just reached a line. I know. Just understand, there will be consequences." An hour later, Denise Welch sat in her own living room, scrolling through the same storm. She hadn't expected Sean to walk. She'd sparred with politicians, comedians, rock stars, most stayed, most fought back with words. His quiet refusal had rattled her more than shouting ever could. She replayed the moment in her head. Cop out. Had that been too far? Maybe. But she also believed in holding people accountable. The trouble was, television didn't leave much room for nuance. The next morning, newspapers ran opposing headlines. Sean Bean storms off loose women. Sean Bean refuses to be ambushed live on air. Loose women opened with a statement. Ruth spoke carefully, emphasizing strong opinions on all sides, and passionate discussion. Denise followed, defending her questions but admitting the exchange had become heated. Sean watched none of it. Instead, he walked his dog through a quiet park, hood up, grateful for the anonymity of early morning. A man recognized him anyway. "Good on you, mate," the stranger said simply, then kept walking. Later that week, Sean agreed to a single interview, print, not television. No shouting panels. No applause signs. Just a journalist and a recorder. "You walked off," the reporter said. "Do you regret it?" Sean considered the question. "I regret that it became a spectacle," he said. "I don't regret standing up. For myself. Some say you avoided the issue." He shook his head. "I avoided being reduced. There's a difference." The article ran the following Sunday, calmer in tone, and something shifted. The noise didn't vanish, but it softened. Conversations replaced arguments. Even critics admitted he'd articulated his stance clearly, if belatedly. Behind the scenes, invitations changed. Some shows quietly stopped calling. Others, long-form podcasts, serious interviews, started reaching out. Sean accepted a few, declined many. Then, unexpectedly, an email arrived from Denise. It was short. "Sean, I've been thinking a lot about our exchange. I still believe in asking difficult questions, but I also recognize when the format turns discussion into confrontation. I'm sorry for my part in that. Denise." Sean read it twice. He didn't respond immediately. Pride tugged one way, respect the other. That evening, he typed back. "Denise, I respect strong questions. I reacted because it stopped feeling like a conversation. I accept your apology, and I hope we can leave it there." Sean. They never met to discuss it publicly. No joint appearance, no staged reconciliation. And somehow, that felt right. Months later, Sean's series premiered to record ratings. Reviews focused on his performance, not his politics, not the walk-off. At a quiet industry dinner, a producer raised a glass. "Takes guts," she said. "Not everyone has the courage to say no on live TV." Sean smiled faintly. Sometimes saying no is the only honest answer. The loose women incident didn't define him. It marked a boundary, one drawn live, under lights, with millions watching. And in an industry built on endless access and constant opinion, that boundary became something rare. A reminder that even on daytime television, some lines are worth holding.